Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you that are calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We'd like to move quickly through this call. We know you're busy people. You have other things that you need to be doing. Our format is very straightforward. We spend a few minutes talking about the revaluation of the dinar, which we believe to be the base currency for the potential reset of these other currencies. We spend a few minutes talking about the program we put into place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about the situation in Iraq today. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We are not advocating either the purchase or sale of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we believe to be pertinent. The most pertinent piece of information is a feasible window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. We continue to believe, as we have for some months, that the most plausible date for the reinstitution would be January of 2020. There are things going on in Iraq which seem to support that glide path to January. First would be the actions currently going on in the CBI, the Bank of Iraq, and second is the growth of the private sector. So let's start by talking about the actions of the CBI, the Central Bank of Iraq. We're still waiting for the release of the lower dinars and the coinage. We were told at one point that release of the coinage may be held up until after the passage of the 2020 budget. Now they seem to be indicating that the coinage, along with the lower dinars, will be fully released by mid-October. That would be a very good sign. The CBI had preferred that the lower dinars and the coinage be on the street and circulated by the general public for about 90 days prior to reinstitution, and the release in October would push us right to the January for the reinstitution. The CBI has been somewhat hampered in their maintenance of the money supply, simply because as the old worn-out notes are turned into the bank from the citizens, those notes are collected. They're then sent to the regional banks, which then send them to the CBI with IOUs. The function of the CBI is to then destroy those notes and replace them with new notes. The problem is that the notes in many cases are so worn out that they cannot be counted by the machines. Many of us know sometimes when we try to use paper money in a machine, you're washing your car or you're at the express lane at the grocery store, you put the money in there and it won't take the money because it's too worn out. Well, that's unfortunately what's happened with a lot of these older 3-0 notes. So the CBI is forced to do the calculations manually, and that's holding up the release of the replacement funds. That shouldn't have an effect on the reinstitution, but it is sort of slowing things down. But the CBI, again, is working toward what I consider to be the most plausible date, January 2020. The second issue, of course, is the growth of the private sector. And this month, October, there will be international fairs in both Erbil and Baghdad. Dozens of countries from west to east will be in attendance. We know that the substantial increase in the production of crude in Iraq has created the funds necessary to contract individuals, other nations, and individual international corporations to help rebuild their electric grid and their infrastructure. But the purpose of these fairs is to showcase the growth of the private sector. There are various sectors within the private economy: the agricultural sector, the industrial sector, food sector, tourism, all of these things. And lastly, The Parliament is in the process right now of debating their sovereignty bill. It's a 10-point bill, basically illustrating to the nation and therefore to the world that Iraq has emerged as a non-sectarian, modern, sovereign nation, and that irrespective of one's religious beliefs, race, or semi-autonomous region that they live in, they are all part of one nation, the nation of Iraq. So all of these things, once again, are a glide path to what I consider to be the most plausible date for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. That would be January of 2020. In addition, January of 2020 is when the new 2020 budget will be finally passed. And if they do not reinstitute their currency simultaneous with the budget, then they have a problem with the value of the currency and the projections for revenues and all of that. So they're going to need to do this in concert, and I think that they will. Now, the absolute worst-case scenario would be postponing the reinstitution until March. The reasons for that are kind of technical and have to do with whether or not the coinage and the dinars, if they are released later than, say, November 1st, theoretically they will not be in circulation for 90 days in January, but I think that would be overcome. So the date of March is a possibility, but I do not think that it's a probability. Again, everything seems to be pointing to January of 2020. Now, because we're dealing with Iraq, anyone that's had currencies for any length of time knows there's always an X factor with Iraq, and someone or something seems to rear its ugly head at the last second. But it seems that over the last few months, Iraq has been methodically pushing these potential X factors to the side. So January 2020, to me, seems like the only plausible date. Now, that gives us time to do a lot of things. When I'm contacted by clients and other individuals, as a matter of fact, I was on a radio program the other day, and they asked me about, the process and what we were going to do and how our program worked and how these trusts work. And I said, I'm not going to give anyone personal advice. The way I answer that question is to say, well, this is what I'm going to do, with the belief that we're looking at a reinstitution probably in January. Between now and then, I'm going to be purchasing additional dinar. Between now and then, I'm going to get my affairs in order. Now, because of the nature of my work, I believe my affairs are in order, my trust is in place, and I'm good to go. However, I am going to be making some minor changes to my trust package, so I will accomplish all of those things over the next couple of months. But the point is, I'm basing my behavior today on the assumption that we're looking at, again, January is the reinstitution. And so I will share with you the things that I believe that need to be accomplished for anyone that has currencies between now and then. To assist our folks, we have established a turnkey program. It is a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a package of pre-RV asset protection trusts with the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust package. Phase 2 is post-RV, involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation, or rather the reinstitution of the dinar and these other currencies. So let's start with Phase 1, which is, again, the establishment of a package of pre-RV asset protection trusts with the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust package. Now, there are a number of entities one can establish to provide at least some level of asset protection, but there is a very specific reason why we have established a package of irrevocable trusts. Individuals, for example, can establish entities like LLCs or sub-S corporations. They do provide some asset protection, primarily by separating business assets from personal assets. The problem here is that the currencies are not a business asset per se, they're a personal asset. In addition, Several court jurisdictions have ruled that if an LLC or a sub-S corporation in the majority is owned by one person or a closely held group, those entities can be pierced for civil litigation. So they're simply not going to be appropriate to protect these currencies and the post-RV USD that you will receive in exchange for those currencies. Some individuals have established an entity called a revocable trust. A revocable trust is a statutory trust. It's designed primarily to allow your state to bypass the cost and delay of probate, which is a statutory matter. The problem with the revocable trust is they can provide no privacy or asset protection, so they're going to be inappropriate for your needs. Some individuals have established an irrevocable trust, which can provide privacy and asset protection, but the problem with a single revocable trust is that if any asset within the trust is involved in civil litigation, it would necessarily drag the other assets into that litigation because they're all owned by the same entity, that one irrevocable trust. That is why Trusts Unlimited has established a package of irrevocable trusts, and I will explain to you why that will provide the bulletproof asset protection that you need and that only such a trust package can provide. By establishing your package of irrevocable trust, you will have accomplished the following. First, you will preserve your privacy and your anonymity. That's because assets held within our trust package are sealed, and the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this trust package and assigning your currencies pre-RV to this package, you will have successfully avoided personal IRS scrutiny. If you're holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will most likely spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be frustrating and time-consuming, particularly since it would occur simultaneous with the revaluation of these currencies. And the cost of a 6-year IRS audit would be more than the cost of our asset protection trust package. On the other hand, if your pre-RV trust package is in place and your currencies have been assigned to that trust package, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of the revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, that's important for two reasons. First, there's less than a 10% chance of an IRS audit if the revaluation were to occur within a sophisticated trust package. Second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is if you plan on gifting currencies to family and friends in certain situations. Philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% gift tax, you're going to need to gift currencies to family and friends prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem either giving them the currency to exchange for themselves or giving them the USD lump sum after you've negotiated the exchange, that can be done outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV lump sum, you can gift to them through the special gift subtrust that we've established within our trust package. By gifting through this trust package, their USD will be protected along with yours. The language of this trust package will allow you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency or currencies, meaning you can gift to these individuals the exact US dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. But because you're gifting through the special gift subtrust, their money is protected within the trust package, meaning that you will have complete ability to manage, invest, and distribute the money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you two quick scenarios. Scenario number one, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now this estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with the probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years and even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax, the tax that the federal government would assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax. But the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, it's completely avoidable. Scenario number two, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits, benefits which only a package of trust can provide. Pre-RV, this trust package provides a benefit allowing you to circumvent the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Now, what does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You assign them to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust is structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000, the value of the currency at the time you transferred it out of title to our trust, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit that can only be provided through a package of trusts. I like to refer to it as limited liability stop-loss. This protection is accomplished through a legal asset protection strategy referred to as segregation of assets, and this is how it would work. Again, we'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar, transfer them, assign them to our trust. They revalue for $25 million. Now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust. Now, why is this critical from an asset protection standpoint? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident, the accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts, of which you're merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. All of your other assets and net worth are safely protected in the other subtrusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate subtrusts are separate legal entities or persons, and the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue a separate legal person. So your trust package works very much the way a barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your asset protection trust package prior to the revaluation of these currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, a holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in Phase 2, all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation. I'll just make mention of one here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust packages. Many of our clients have expressed a desire to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is through the direct transfer of funds from your asset protection trust to those newly formed entities. We'll have our tech specialists there to help you with a number of strategies to reduce and in some cases eliminate future taxation. Our offshore specialists will show you that by establishing offshore title of certain assets, you can substantially reduce and in some cases eliminate future taxes on the reinvestment of the net proceeds from the revaluation itself. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets after the revaluation for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost in the first 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at the accounts at those banks. So you want to get a substantial amount of your money out of the banks and at work in other markets. Lastly, we know the general global shift from fiat-based to commodity-backed Basel III compliant currencies in and of itself is going to create extremely volatile financial markets, and you're going to want a substantial amount of your net worth at work in tangible areas, real estate, metals, the stock market in terms of stocks in assets like mining shares, I could go on all day long, but the point is you're going to want to get a substantial amount of your money in tangible assets after the revaluation. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV, and then financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, one optional gift subtrust, which can be converted to a standard subtrust at any time, and 8 additional standard subtrusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But when we decided to work with Denarians, we knew that price tag was going to be unaffordable for too many. So by restructuring the package, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. Now, there are several ways you can pay for that. You pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's not possible, we have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. With this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their trust in place pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your credit card would be substantially less than the $100 a month you'd pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies for all of the reasons that we've stated here. Now, I am going to go to a Q&A in just a moment, but before I do, and again for the benefit of our newer callers, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you may want to seriously consider allowing us to assist you. Our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in this area, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have been working together for over a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning, and it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so, they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. In point of fact, it's precisely the opposite in our system of civil procedure. It's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them or lose them outright. And it's at precisely those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre- and post-RV as we understand them. Again, thanks for listening to the call. I hope you found this information informative. When we go to the Q&A, I will be providing you with our contact information. I highly suggest that if you have, in fact, found this information important, you contact us and get our initial no-obligation package. It has all of the information that you're going to need about us, about the trust, about the evaluation. It even includes everything you need if you decide to proceed to establish your asset protection trust package. But again, you're under no obligation to do so. If you have any questions, you can contact us by phone or email. We'll be happy to answer any questions you may have, and there will be no consultation fee. Now, I'm going to go ahead and open the Q&A. Before I do, 2 quick rules on the Q&A. First, we don't take any service calls on the Q&A. The Q&A is reserved for questions about Trusts Unlimited and the process of establishing a trust. And second, for obvious reasons, your name and number must be on the screen to participate in the Q&A. So I'm going to go ahead and open up now. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD calls and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for today's live call with the exception of the last digit. Rather than dialing 4, you'll dial a 3, and then use the same access code, which is 739-394-pound. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you can go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out periodically pre-RV, but post-RV emails will be going out probably on a weekly basis. So let's go to the Q&A here. Our first call is from area code 916. That's 916. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. It's Christopher. Last week you spoke about converting your currencies to the dinar. Could you explain the thinking behind that?
Okay. Now, before I do, let me qualify this by saying I am a substantial holder in dinar, dong, rupiah, and zim. But with the passage of time and with the advice and counsel I've gotten from people who, in my view, know what they're talking about and have been right on a lot of issues, I'm going to reduce the amount of dong, rupiah, and zim that I have and purchase more dinar. Now, I can afford to just go buy more dinar, but again, I've decided the other currencies are either going to reinstitute further down the road, and in the case of the zim, perhaps never at all. And frankly, at my age, I'm not a spring chicken. I just don't feel like waiting for the eventual reinstatement and revaluation of those currencies. I continue to believe that dinar is the first currency to go. I continue to believe that it will reinstitute as early as January. So I'm simply, rather than just spending all my money on more dinar, I'm going to sell some of my other currencies and utilize the funds from the sale of those currencies to purchase dinar.
Could you tell us your feeling on the dong, why that may not go?
We have to remember that the dong has been operating for decades at its current rate. Now, there is a good future in Vietnam. They do have a decent economy. They, a few years ago, found a rather large oil reserve off the coast of North Vietnam. There is an indigenous plant in Vietnam that can be used for a sugar substitute that they say is very good. So there's all kinds of things going on in Vietnam. In addition, they'll probably be part of the Silk Road Initiative, where China is trying to reinstitute the old Silk Road, cutting through a number of countries. So again, it's not that the dong will not reinstitute and revalue. It's just that, in my personal opinion, it's not going to happen anytime soon. And in my personal situation, I mean, if I was 37, I might feel differently, but I'm 67, so basically I'm going to go for the quick hit. That's the only way. I know it sounds blunt, but that's just the way I'm looking at it, and so I'm going to just load up on more dinar. I'm not going to eliminate all the other currencies with the possible exception of the Zim, but I am going to beef up the dinar.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay, our next caller is area code 801. That's 801. And that's got to be Harold.
Yes, it is, and thank you for taking my call. The question today is, when the trust is paying the tax, federal tax, state tax, is it paying on the values that going into the trust, or does it pay on the values that have greatly expanded in the trust?
Okay. Here's the reason I cannot answer that question directly. Under Section 988E2 of the Code, it refers to the gain from the exchange of the currency as cap gain. That would suggest that our holding the currency, the physical currency, is a capital asset. Under Section 643B of the Code, it says the sale or exchange of that asset within our irrevocable trust is tax deferred. So until we can determine exactly what the tax status of the profit from the exchange is, it's almost impossible for us to figure out exactly what the tax implications are, either for the investment gain or whatever federal or state tax theoretically might be appropriate. We've attempted to get an answer from the IRS. They have declined to respond to us prior to the reinstitution of the currency, so I can't directly answer that question. From a conventional point of view, if the assets are not in a trust like ours, if they are transferred through the estate process, they would be subject to the federal estate tax. The payment of taxes on the gain, assuming there are taxes, would mean that if the gain on the reinvestment of the proceeds is retained by the trust would pay the tax. If those gains are distributed to we as beneficiaries of the trust, we would pay the tax. If we get, say, half of the gain and the trust keeps half of the gain, then the trust would pay tax on their half and we would pay tax on our half.
It sounds kind of messy.
Yes, it is, and until the IRS clarifies for us in writing. Now, let's assume that the IRS doesn't, which is a possibility, and let's assume the revaluation happens and we don't know what the tax is. We'll be forced to pay the ordinary income tax, because if we don't, there's a 100% penalty. So what we have designed is a letter. So you'll pay the ordinary income tax, but you will simultaneously apply for a refund citing 988E2 and 643B of the Internal Revenue Code. That's unfortunately, we don't want to have to do that, but if the IRS does not give us the information in a timely fashion, we're going to be forced to pay the ordinary income tax and file for a refund.
Okay, well, I'm pretty sure my accountant that I've used for 20 years or more probably doesn't understand all those kinds of things. But I live 120 miles away from a major IRS processing center. So out here in my state, we fill those things out, the tax forms out every year as if that was going to be the year we're going to be audited, because it's really easy to, we got local offices everywhere for everybody to come to and things. Is there any help available for defending the trust if we take a turn being audited?
Well, once again, there is like, for example, the letter that we're going to have for the refund. We will provide the general information that everyone can utilize, but it's entirely possible that you're going to need, if necessary, to hire local attorney. We can help you with the trust, but we can't help you with auxiliary issues like taxes and investments and all of that. Everyone's going to have to deal with that. We will provide the best general information to help you defend. And when it comes to the remark about your attorney, your accountant not being sure how to handle this, remember, something of this magnitude certainly has not happened in our lifetime. So we're all sort of at a loss. I mean, we've never had the IRS deferred to the Treasury Department, and the Treasury Department says we're not going to respond on the tax issue until after the event. Well, we need that information. So I can say this. If the IRS does not give us the information in a timely fashion and then attempts to penalize us, there will be litigation, and it won't be you or me, one guy against the IRS. It's going to be anywhere from 6 to 8 million denarii saying, you know what, this ain't right. You didn't give us the information, and now you're trying to penalize us. And in our case, we can show that we attempted to get the information from the IRS, and they declined to provide it. So I hope we don't have to go through that. After the revaluation, the last thing any of us want to go through is litigation with anyone, let alone the federal government. But if necessary, so be it.
Well, if it occurs in 2020, January, then they would have the rest of the year to deal with that and things. And so that could be a positive for having it occur in 2020,
If it occurs in January 2020, that'll give us time to compel the IRS to explain the tax status to us before the tax would be due in April 15th. So that would allow us to allow the currencies to appreciate if necessary, and it would allow us to only pay the tax due rather than paying possibly unnecessary ordinary income tax to avoid a penalty. So, if it happens in March, then it's a whole different ballgame. But we just have to wait and see what happens.
Well, thank you for taking my call, and I guess they would have enough time, about 14 months or more to get that decided, and maybe that could work.
Well, like I said, if it happens in January, we should be fine.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and appreciate it.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye. Our next caller is area code 405. That's 405. Go ahead.
Hello, Jim. This is Old Spring Chicken of 77 years, Tom in Oklahoma. How are you today?
Yes, sir. I'm fine. How are you?
Well, I just finished mowing the yard, so I'm cooling off.
God bless you. If you're mowing the yard at 77, you're doing fine.
Well, that's what my neighbors tell me. I ought to spend some money and have it done, but Social Security don't pay much.
Well, we all need a little exercise, even at 77.
I know it, and I'm finding that out. The question I have is, you say that we should, I have assigned all my currencies to the trust. However, the question that I'm a little confused on here is I buy more and each batch comes in, do I need to sign that batch to the trust as well, or does that include all of those that come in later that I'm still purchasing?
If you will read the assignment form, it says any pre-valued currencies in my possession or that I should subsequently acquire is hereby assigned to my trust package. Now go back and look at your assignment form, I believe it's paragraph 2, just to make sure. But I have the same trust, I have the same documents, and it clearly says in my assignment form, any and all pre-valued currencies in my possession or that I should subsequently acquire is hereby assigned to my trust package. So go ahead and check that. If that's not the case, I want you to send me an email. I will send you an assignment form that has that specific language, and once you execute that, then you can purchase currency every day. It'll all be assigned to your trust.
Well, I wish I had that kind of money to do that, but getting where I am now, maybe I need to sell some of that dong. But I do appreciate that, and I will look into that. And don't be such a being raised on a farm. I'm going to say this, but some of the old hens that escaped after they finished their laying cycle came about, and they were just as good a layer as some of the younger ones. So the spring chickens may not apply to you.
Well, my dad used to have a saying, the problem with experience is people that don't have it don't understand its value.
Won't ever do that again.
Right. All right, listen, you check that form out, and if it does not have the language about subsequent purchase of currencies, send me a quick email. I will send you the form that has that language.
I will be happy to do that, but I'm pretty sure you're probably going to be correct. And I think as I go through life, a lot of my ignorance, is diminished. So.
Well, that's the plan. You take care, Tom.
You too.
All right, bye-bye. Our next caller is area code. We got another 405. 405, go ahead. Hello, 405, you're there. Okay, we're going to move on to the next caller. The next caller is, oh my goodness, it's 312. That's got to be Les.
That's right. Ding, 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 ding.
Oh, now we're going to play Stump. Yeah, right. Now we're going to play Stump Jim. Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Jim. Or
yes, sir.
Still morning. No, it's afternoon over there where you are.
Yep.
All right. So these people wanting to sell their dog, I want to buy it.
Well,
can I buy it from them?
Well, you might be hearing from me in a little while. I'm going to write your number down to make sure I have it.
Because I believe that dong is still going.
Oh, I'm not saying it's not going. The only one that I'm really wobbly on is the Zim for a lot of technical reasons. I do think the Dom and the repeal will eventually go. I just don't see them going anytime soon. I mean, the Dong has been in the same position for like 30 or 40 years. So I'm hoping that the reinstitution and revaluation of the Iraqi dinar will instigate the reval of some of these other currencies that have been in a program rate for decades. But again, as I said, to be honest with you, I've been doing this for 8 years, not just possessing currencies, but doing these calls on a weekly basis. And so I'm going to take whatever I can get from the dinar, and I'm moving on down the road. So that's why I just want out, and I'm just going to move along. I'm not saying the dinar and the rupiah aren't going to go, although I personally do not believe the Zim is going to go, and I got a ton of Zim. But if someone wants to buy it, I'll sell it to them at a discount. So I'll give you a call. I don't know if I can call you this afternoon, but I will give you a call this week and see what you want to do.
All right, we'll do. Thanks.
Yes, sir. You take care.
Say hi to the professor for me. All right.
Will do. Okay, bye.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Well, that was our last call for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen in. I strongly suggest that those of you calling in for the first time or may not have gotten your affairs in order, contact us and at the very least get our initial no-obligation package. Once again, it has all of the information you need about us, about the trust, about the reval. You can contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. There will be no consultation fee. And if you decide to proceed, everything you need is included in the package. Our next call is scheduled, of course, next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get an emergency email out and schedule an emergency conference call. Failing that, we will be back next Wednesday afternoon, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. So have a great week, everyone. Look forward to speaking with you again next week. Bye-bye.